An old order Amish schoolhouse was padlocked and sold for unpaid sewer connection fees, while the Yoders were each charged and convicted of criminal offenses and sentenced to pay criminal fines. I just talked to a reporter about a case in Virginia. I get kind of annoyed when, you hear sometimes lawmakers make statements. You can tell that they're frustrated because they're trying to work out a problem for their jurisdiction, but they're not always taking into account the idea that different Amish have validly held beliefs and they don't always mesh perfectly with what the state wants to do. Hey guys, so I want to get you caught up with a court case and a decision in northwestern Pennsylvania, which has been called a victory for religious freedom for the Amish. This is a case that's been going on for 20 years. What's the issue here? Dating back to 2004, Amish in Sugar Grove Township in northwestern Pennsylvania have refused to abide with local ordinances which require them to basically give up their outhouses and connect to the municipal sewer system in Sugar Grove Township. Now, what's the problem? If they were to do that, they would have to use electric grinder pumps. I don't know what electric grinder pumps are exactly, but the point is they use electricity. And this is apparently a pretty conservative group of Amish in that area. So they've objected to that, and they say that if they were forced to do that, that would violate their religious beliefs. So what happened? The U.S. Department of Justice got involved. And after this went through a number of court decisions going against the Amish, the Justice Department, and this is from the Warren, Pennsylvania Times-Observer, they announced an agreement basically to, quote, resolve claims from Old Order Amish in Sugar Grove that Sugar Grove's attempts to force Old Order Amish to hook up to the sewage system, pay hookup fees, fines and fees associated with the sewer system violate the Old Order Amish residents' religious rights. So it's a big victory for them. The Amish in this case have gone through a lot, particularly one family, the Yoders, the family that was, for whatever reason, in the crossfires. Over the past 20 years, they've faced fines, fees. There was at least one forced property sale. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Criminal convictions and potential imprisonment. This township, this local authority has really gone after them for not complying with the ordinance. And as you see this in different communities across the country, sometimes in cases like this, there could be some underlying animosity between the Amish side and the non-Amish side. So that's always important to keep in mind. You see this in other cases where it comes to things like in Ohio, the buggy lighting law that was passed statewide, which has affected a lot of the plainest Amish in that state, and they're kind of going through something similar. And those things are typically resolved locally without it elevating to this kind of national level. So, what did the Amish in this case go through? This is also from the Times Observer. Quote, the defendants, and that's referring in this case to the Sugar Grove Township side, have imposed municipal liens and fines and obtained judgments against Sugar Grove Old Order Amish property owners totaling more than $200,000. Now, what about that forced property sale? That's this next part. The defendants conducted a sheriff's sale of the Yoders' home on September 23, 2021, because the Yoders did not comply with the township's sewage connection ordinance. The sale was only set aside because the Yoders were not provided proper notice. So set aside, I believe here, they must have not executed the sale for whatever reason in that case. However, they did sell a piece of property from the community. An old order Amish schoolhouse was padlocked and sold for unpaid sewer connection fees in February 2021, while the Yoders were each charged and convicted of criminal offenses and sentenced to pay criminal fines. It's like, well, why didn't they just pay the fees? That's a lot of times in these cases, like you have the plainer Amish and people from outside just don't understand. Well, okay, they don't want to connect. Well, maybe they could just pay the fees and they avoid all this, other bad stuff happening, like forced sales of property. That's kind of a matter of conscience in a lot of cases. At least that's how the Amish involved describe it, where it's, if we pay the fees, it's in some sense admitting guilt or admitting we were wrong in our convictions. And in these cases, the Amish often see this or frame this as a religious rights, religious freedom issue. This gets back to the idea of Amish being, there's not like one size fits all Amish. And sometimes when outsiders come to the Amish, they have experience maybe with one group, which is more progressive, and then they end up dealing with another group that is more conservative, and they don't understand, well, why don't these Amish behave like these other Amish? And so you sometimes get these kind of top-down actions taken where some of the Amish might comply with it, but others are going to object to it. And that sounds like what we have here. The decision was described as a win for religious freedom. Quoting again, no one should have to choose between keeping their home or practicing their faith, said acting U.S. Attorney Troy Rivetti for the Western District of Pennsylvania. So, I mean, it just, some of the things you read seem pretty extreme. And, I get kind of annoyed when, there's another example of this. I just talked to a reporter about a case in Virginia, where, you hear sometimes lawmakers make statements revealing, I don't want to say like a condescension, but you can tell that they're frustrated, but they're not always taking into account the idea that different Amish have validly held beliefs and they don't always mesh perfectly with what the state wants to do. And so you get situations like this, and the people involved have to go through a lot of difficulty, worry, pain, financial burden, even criminal convictions in this case, fear of potential prison time, when maybe there was a better way that could have been implemented or considered from the beginning. And a lot of that, I think, starts with understanding who you're dealing with and understanding the concerns of both sides. I'm not absolving the Amish of any responsibility in these types of issues, so I don't want people to get me wrong on this. I think there needs to be some concern from their side as well. Working with the other side, and what are their good faith concerns that maybe the Amish can do their part to address. And I think a good number of them do that. But you do get these cases where the Amish are not going to budge and adopt what the state wants, and so we end up in these sorts of situations. But I wonder if there couldn't have been a better resolution to this case if there had been more, let's say, understanding back in the mid 2000s when this thing was just kind of starting up. I doubt anyone perceived that it would last for 20 years when that happened. And of course, hindsight is 2020. Finally, guys, there sounds like there's one last piece of this that still has to come into place. A consent order must be approved. So a consent order is essentially a formal resolution. The Department of Justice and the Sugar Grove side have agreed to resolve this case. And it sounds like that a consent order is what will lay out the understandings and the actions to be taken as part of the resolution. So the details on the proposed order, quoting again from the story, as part of the consent order, the Township and Sugar Grove Area Sewage Authority will exempt certain old order Amish households from mandatory connection to the municipal sewage system, permit old order Amish residents to use privies on their private properties, and forgive any outstanding liens, fines, or other monetary penalties against old order Amish households for prior non-compliance with the two ordinances. That's kind of the main gist of it, okay? So it looks like this is the last piece of this case. Now, this order, I should say, must still be approved by the court, okay? I haven't seen anything on how long that's expected to take. But again, this case has been essentially depicted as a win for the Amish. Based upon that, I assume that this order or something like it is going to be approved. And so hopefully this will put an end to this whole 2-decade saga for the Amish in this community. So guys, that's the gist of it. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you like this video, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to you soon.